friends. Welcome to Harmony Hills Home and Gardening. I'm Jenny and we're gardening here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7, where it is a rainy, cool afternoon, perfect for working undercover on the side porch on a fairy garden installation. So come along with me and let's make a fairy garden. I love making fairy gardens and I do them just about every year. And the reason I love them is because it makes me feel like a kid again, and it really lets me let my imagination run wild and use plants as a way to make them come to life. What I have here today is a hanging basket with a cocoa liner, and I think this basket is 16 inches in diameter, although I haven't measured it. I'm not exactly sure. And I have filled it with potting soil. This is container potting mix, and it does have fertilizer already in it, a synthetic fertilizer, and I have added some Biotone starter fertilizer, and so this is all ready to go and ready to receive my plants. I also have my 2 fairy houses that I made in a previous video, and if you haven't seen that, you might want to go check that out and make one of your own. So my 2 fairy houses are going to live somewhere in this fairy garden. And then I have a whole collection of plants here. Let me show you more detailed of what kind of plants I have to choose from. Okay, we have all kinds of things going on here. We've got creeping Jenny, which are great as a spiller. I have 2 good looking ones and 1 kind of rough because it got dried out as it was waiting for this project. I have a little 4-pack of some succulents. I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought these looked like little miniature hostas, and except for the red part. But anyway, that's why I got these. They look like little miniature plants. I tend to go for mini things or things that can be mini trees. And so I have some Scotch moss here. This is a nice lawn for a fairy garden. Here's another moss. This one also, I had bought some plants for this project and then I accidentally let them get too dry. So 2 different kinds of moss. This is lemon coral sedum. I'm not sure if this is going to go in this container or if it's going to be used somewhere else in my garden. Not sure. I have a dwarf mondo grass, which I just noticed is starting to bloom, so that's fun. But this looks like kind of like a, I don't know, some sort of, at fairy size, this is kind of like a miscanthus or something, pennisetum, I don't know. I have some plain white regular old impatiens, which are going to add some nice flowers. I have an asparagus fern, 2 green and white polka dot plants, 1 Dusty Miller. I have 1 of these jade plants, and then I have 1 of these Dracaena trees, which it'll be a fairy tree. It would normally be in the houseplant section, and this was in the houseplant section. The rest of these came from the garden section at my Home Depot. Not Home Depot, Lowe's, I think. This was in the houseplant section as well. And then last but not least, I have 2 of these air plants. So I think these are going to be fun little like shrubs on the outside of one of the fairy houses or something like that. So a nice collection. You can see most of it, it's all green and white. Shades of green, shades of white. I didn't put any pink flowers in like I did last year. It's really just foliage is the main story here. Okay, when I make my fairy houses, I usually try to come up with some sort of story for them, a little backstory. And this year's backstory is that my fairies, 1, they don't like to be seen by humans. And that's why every time I look at this fairy garden, I never can find the fairies. I don't know why. They like to hide from the humans. And they like to collect shiny things. And that's why there are glass beads and silver and gold beads on the fairy houses. They have found these in the neighborhood and they've collected them and they've incorporated them into the constructions of their home. And so our fairy garden here will probably end up, they will probably collect shiny objects over the course of the summer and their collection will grow over the season. So that's kind of who my fairies are this year. I don't know how many there are. There might be 3 or 4 fairies living in this garden. I'm not sure. I don't know. We're going to find out over the course of the summer, aren't we? All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is put in this tree. A Dracaena spike is really what it is, but I'm calling it a fairy tree. And it's going to be in the back. Now I'm not going to be hanging this hanging basket. I'm going to be actually setting it onto a plant stand, so we'll be able to see into it pretty easy. Okay, so that looks a lot like a palm tree, doesn't it? It's fun. All right, and then the next thing is this big tree. This is like a forest. And if I can, I'm gonna try to separate this. Let's see if it'll, come on now, come out of there. Separated easily. I'd like to separate this into two. Can I? Oh yeah. I'm sorry that the lighting here is pretty dark. It is a rainy day. We're undercover. I do have the light on, but it's not very bright. Okay, that's a good start. I think I'm gonna go get some water and get this soil moist. It's gonna dribble out on the bottom if I'm not too careful. Okay, so when I make my fairy gardens, I really just play. I just play around and do what strikes me. I don't really have a method. So kind of have the concept that these fairies are living in a neighborhood. So where should the houses be? Like one of them could be there. One of them could be here. Or maybe here. These are going to get rained on, but that's okay. They'll maybe last this season, and then next year we'll make some new ones. All right, let's see if I'm going to use this moss as a lawn. This Irish moss is darker green than the Scotch moss. There we go. So this house has a beautiful green lawn in front of it. And then this other one I'll use as a lawn for this house. So hopefully this moss will fill in and spread out and eventually touch each other. I'm getting dripped on. My water's leaking out. Put some of this creeping Jenny over here so it can trail out the side. I'm angling this root ball kind of on its side so that all of the tendrils come out and over the edge. Again, I'm laying that down on its side so that the tendrils come out over the edge. Really don't want the creeping Jenny to creep into the scene so much. I just want it to kind of be a nice border around it. And I think I'll put the other creeping Jenny right here. It doesn't take too long before all these root balls start to compete with each other, and you really gotta jam them in there. This is one season's project. I will do a new one next year, so I'm not concerned about longevity on any of these plants. I just hope they make it to the frost. All right, so we're starting our forest here. Good. The lawns are getting a little dirty, but that's okay. I'm going to take this out for now because I don't want to get them too dirty. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to use one of these polka dot plants as a kind of a concept of a large shrub behind and beside this house here. It'll kind of be like a cuba that I have in my yard, but miniature sized. Kind of. I mean, it's not gold, it's white, but you kind of get the idea. I don't have any of my impatiens in yet. Let's put some of those in. This is a large pot, but it's got multiple plants in it, so I'm going to separate the plants out. I think it has 3, maybe 4 in there. Well, I was thinking about putting this Dusty Miller right back here behind this succulent. See if I can get it to fit in there. Well, friends, how's it looking? So each of our fairies has a nice front lawn, and they've got landscaping around. They live backed up to a little wooded area. And yeah, so I think what we have here is 2 best friends who decided to build little retirement homes right next to each other. So these fairies they've retired from their fairy jobs, and now they're just living the good life here in the fairy garden. And yeah, so now I think it's just time for them to begin gathering up shiny objects and living their best life here in the fairy garden. I didn't use the last of the impatiens. I didn't use the lemon coral sedum, and I didn't use the asparagus fern, but everything else is in here. And so now I'm going to set this out into the garden into its final location. I totally managed to get the entire front of my shirt really soaked with water because it was dripping out of the basket onto my counter, and I leaned up against the counter. So, oh well, hazards of gardening. All right, so here we go. Fairy Garden 2021 is in place. Sitting on a plant stand inside of a hanging basket. The houses, again, they're not expected to last more than 1 season, so it's okay. Don't worry about it being not weatherproof. It's all right. It's a rainy day today, so I'm going to let the rain wash off all these leaves here. I'll come back out after the rain has stopped, and if it still needs it, I'll wash off more of the leaves at that time. I like this house the best, but it's darkest and it doesn't show up as much. And you really can't see the stone foundation much at all, but I know it's there. Well, friends, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun watching, and I hope you get out there and make a fairy garden of your own. And if you do, let me know. Maybe send me a picture or point me toward your online accounts where I can see them. Have a wonderful day, friends, and happy gardening.